ASU football season is just a couple weeks away, and to break down ASU's Week 1 matchup with the USC Trojans is WCSN football reporter Gareth Kwok. And Gareth, ASU comes into this season as probably one of the best teams in the Pac-12, but they're going to face a really stout USC defense in Week 1. What's different about that defense as opposed to when they faced them last year?
Well, first, a couple of things, Alex. Number one being a new defensive coordinator for the Trojans in Todd Orlando. He steps in after being the defensive coordinator at Texas for the past 3 seasons. He's a hard-nosed, aggressive-minded coach. He's going to be trying to instill a lot more toughness in this Trojan defense that gave up almost 30 points a game last season. And then number two being probably their best defensive lineman in Jay Tufele opting out for the NFL draft. Scouts say he's a top 100 pick, and so for USC to lose such a leader and a talent in the defensive line, I think those two things, you have Tufele's absence as well as Orlando trying to implement a new defensive scheme with all the restrictions that California has had, it could work to Jaden Daniels' advantage.
So you mentioned Jaden Daniels. He didn't actually play in ASU's game against USC last season. That game was held by Joey Yellen, who threw for almost 300 yards in that game. This season, Jaden Daniels looks to be under center for ASU. What does he need to do to be successful and get the win for ASU in Week 1?
Well, we saw plenty of times last season where Jaden Daniels can be a leader. And this year, again, the first week, I mean, there's not much of a bigger game to show that leadership than that first game of the season against USC. I think the key is going to be instilling confidence in these new skill players. Again, you have a three-headed monster at running back. You have new skill wide receivers, new freshmen, grad transfers up front. So it's going to be important for Daniels to be able to get them on the same page and rely on them, trust them. They don't have an NAU or UNLV like the previous schedule had to kind of get warmed up and acclimated. So he's going to have to rely on them, trust them, because he's going to have to count on them a lot for not just USC, but for the rest of this season.
So, Gareth, we talked about this before the broadcast. ASU entering this game, at least right now, is 11-point underdogs. So what is your prediction, score prediction for the game, and do you think the ASU covers?
I know you mentioned it, 11-point underdogs. I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. I don't think USC wins by 11, but I do think that they take the victory 35-31 by a 4-point margin. Look, I think this first game for these freshmen is going to be a learning experience. It's going to be maybe some rough patches, but look, I think I'm just going to stand by my prediction that they can win 5 out of their 6 games this season. They can go 5-1, just the one loss coming to USC.
So Gareth predicting a close game. I'm going to predict a close game too. I think ASU might pull it out by a couple points, but I definitely think we can agree that they're going to cover the spread. But that's WCSN football reporter Gareth Kwok. And Gareth, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.